I would like us to just take a minute
Mhm.
and see if we can relate today's reading to the concept of love. Where did you see love happening in this part of the chapter 2?
Honestly, I didn't see too much love in this chapter, except for the fact that his son could play with other kids without feeling like he was different from them. But the love that Coates felt for trying to protect his son and trying to prepare him, trying not to crush his spirit for loving people while trying to prepare him for harsh realities. It's like a terror, and trying to protect him from people who feel like they are superior to us, pushing us aside. You know, he wants to tell people that it's not okay to push us aside, but he also doesn't want the first image of his son to see him go to jail. So he's kind of torn in between. How can we protect our children if we get killed in the jail system in the efforts of trying to protect them? You know,
Right.
we can't go down because then there's no one to raise the children, and there's no one to raise the children. Our children are much more likely to go to jail or die themselves.
Right.
So I feel that he is torn in his situations. You know, where is the line? Where's this mythic? Where's this invisible line between taking care of your kids in a proper way and doing the right thing in a proper way versus going too far or getting yourself killed and leaving your child unprepared for the world that already has it in for them? You
That's
know?
part of the challenge of being black.
Right. And also, I also really much agree with the dismissal of the mantra that we have to be twice as good, because his friend was twice as good. Prince Jones was twice as good and was shot down anyway.
Hmm.
So I feel like his heart is torn for his friend and for all black people who do struggle to be twice as good and find out that they have to be 3 times as good or 4 times as good, or that it doesn't even matter that they're trying to be better
Right.
because they're already doomed.
Right.
You know?
And at the same time, white children do not get that same message and that
Right.
same
White
pressure.
people don't get that message. White kids don't have to walk outside and hear that they have to be twice as good in order to survive and that they're doomed from the start and that America has it in for them. But he's saying, what happens if we were to all be gone? And what would happen if America were to turn its back on those people who were under the impression that they were white?
Well,
Would
right, and
they feel that same sting?
right, and an example of that for me is what happened with the Occupy movement. Those were those were a lot of middle class kids that were out there protesting, and I'm sure they never imagined that they'd feel the boot on their neck
Hmm.
the way that they did.
Right.
But let's go on. Venita, did you see any love angles here?
I saw love angles all over. The whole chapter was this love. Him taking the time and explaining his actions or lack of actions in certain situations was nothing but love. It gave his and those are examples that you really should set for a child. Show a child not just your actions, but give them the reason for your lack of action.
Hmm.
It also teaches them self-control, because this child, no matter what, you and I both, we need self-control foremost.
Hmm.
People
Right.
that have self-control, first of all, people hear them. If they do have something to say, they actually hear them better, for those that choose to listen. People take you more seriously when you have self-control. So I think he was teaching his son some very important lessons by telling him why he did something and also why he might not have done something.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So I thought that I could just feel the love throughout the entire chapter.
I feel like this whole book is written for his son as a roadmap to navigate a cold world where people will judge you.
But this is
I
true.
feel like the whole book is like is an act of love
What's
because it has a lot of examples that will explain his points of views about situations that will either occur to him or may occur to somebody he knows.
Yeah.
In the way the world is, and the steps it takes to maybe do something about changing the world, at least in some small way.
Yes.
No?
Well, if you all will indulge me a couple of more minutes, I want to read a love passage to you. But before I do, my comment would just be, I agree with Venita that there's love all over this chapter.
Right.
And it starts out with the love he felt for Prince Jones. It deals with the love he feels for Black Americans, but as well as humanity. And there's the love of struggle, and where we were questioning at the end of the last chapter whether or not he was telling his son that he didn't have to be involved in struggle.
Yes.
I think he makes it very clear here that you've got to be in struggle because struggle is what keeps you sane.
Mm-hmm.
And then I want to read this passage to you. It's on page 81 of the hardcover. And it starts out, think of all the love poured into him. Think of the tuitions for Montessori and music lessons. Think of the gasoline expended, the treads worn, carting him to football games, basketball tournaments, and Little League. Think of the time spent regulating sleepovers. Think of the surprise birthday parties, the daycare, and the reference checks on babysitters. Think of World Book and Childcraft. Think of checks written for family photos. Think of credit cards charged for vacations. Think of soccer balls, science kits, chemistry sets, racetracks, and model trains. Think of all the embraces, all the private jokes, customs, greetings, names, dreams, all the shared knowledge and capacity of a Black family injected into that vessel of flesh and bone. And think of how that vessel was taken, shattered on the concrete, and all its holy contents, all that had gone into him, sent flowing back to the earth. Think of your mother, who had no father, and your grandmother, who was abandoned by her father, and your grandfather, who was left behind by his father. And think of how Prince's daughter was now drafted into those solemn ranks and deprived of her birthright, that vessel which was her father, which brimmed with 25 years of love, and was the investment of her grandparents, and was to be her legacy.
Right. Which is why it bothers me when people go to the churches and they immediately pray for forgiveness for somebody who just took that away of all that investment. A person is an investment of a child is an investment of their parents, their mark in the world. Without that child, they now when they die, their presence is gone. You know, if Dean dies before I do, my investment in the future of my legacy is now gone. My name is gone. Everything that I was supposed to teach him to be a good man, to raise children,
all the love that you pour into him,
all the love that I poured into him, all the patience for the mistakes, all the schooling and the vacations, everything that was him, his essence is gone. That is an unforgivable mistake. That is something that cannot be given back. And
Yeah.
I'm almost resentful of the victims for first forgiving. Would it be the case if you killed their kids that they would rush to forgiveness for you? I don't think so. Ask you, after the investment that they would make in their children and their futures, the love that they poured into their hearts, would they in turn forgive you if you were to take their kids from them? Would their first thought be forgiveness? Because honestly, it shouldn't be.
Right.
It shouldn't be.
But listen, let's bring this to an end. Even though I'm still mad at you for getting me the note so late.
Yeah, I delivered them to
As
you.
usual, you pulled a rabbit out of the hat.
I've been thinking about it. I had questions in my head. I just didn't have. You want to talk me about procrastinating or whatever? I did have questions in my head to thought about.
well, one of the
It was just a
things.
matter of getting them written down.
Oh, I'm glad you're back, Venita.
Yeah.
One of the things that I connected to, and I thought about you too, Dean, that's in this chapter. It's a small sentence. I don't know where it is, but where he says, at least he had his capacity to write. He's a writer. And so he could take a lot of his anger, and put it on paper. And he was saying, unfortunately, most people that are not writers just have to suck it up with a smile. And so it does please me to know, that you're blossoming into such a good writer. That still doesn't give you the right to jam me up 10 minutes before the program, but nevertheless, I'm glad that you have a way to process, your emotions around these kinds of stressful things. But I disagree with Coates a little bit in the sense that writing is one outlet. It's an excellent outlet, and I'm glad that I have it. But there are other outlets. In fact, I think all of the arts are outlets. So if you're a painter, paint out your anger. If you're a musician, create music. That kind of thing.
If you're an athlete, run until you can't run anymore.
Yeah.
Or play sports to get your anger out, or be great at something.
Yeah.